Yo, what's going on, guys? And of course, we got to talk about the San Antonio Spurs. If you guys have not watched one of these videos before, what we'll be doing today is my season preview and prediction for San Antonio and hit their team. I don't know why, for some reason, I felt like that was going to come out of my mouth wrong and phrasing right there. But either way, let's get right into today's video and discuss what are the expectations? Mitch Johnson is officially the head coach, the successor to arguably, if not definitively, the greatest head coach of all time in Greg Popovich. Now, De'Aaron Fox, Victor Wembanyama, who spent time with Monks, might be the dark horse team in the West. Let's talk about it and let's discuss a potential breakout team in the San Antonio Spurs. I've said it all the time that the Spurs need to follow what the Seahawks did when they had Russell Wilson. Almost said Russell Westbrook, Russell Wilson and the Legion of Boom. If you guys watch American football, what they did was when your quarterback is on a rookie deal, you basically have him on a cost control contract, and they were able to capitalize on that and pay money to a bunch of people to keep it around and become contenders for like a 3 to 4 year window, which I've been hoping that this is what the Spurs would do, but they've been a bit more pragmatic and haven't been so audacious in terms of their approach. I want to hear your thoughts. What are your expectations for the San Antonio Spurs this year? What are your predictions? And is there a breakout star or X factor that should be talked about more? Like, comment, and if you enjoy this type of content, hit that like and subscribe button. Also, go to hoopshype.com. Now, San Antonio has a legit core, in my opinion. I think, regardless of what you guys think, I believe the core of Victor Wembanyama, De'Aaron Fox, maybe you throw in Mr. Devin Vassell. What is the consensus on Devin Vassell right now? Feels like a lot of people are either like me and they still believe Devin Vassell can be that third guy on this team. But the core of Victor Wembanyama, De'Aaron Fox, Devin Vassell definitely makes you kind of like lick your chops because Mitch Johnson officially at the helm. I think the plan offensively is simple, and the same thing defensively with Victor Wembanyama. It's simple, but we'll talk about offense. They want to weaponize De'Aaron Fox and Wemby in the pick and roll, and that's not just to have a guy to throw lobs to who's 7'3", 7'4". No, he can also be a pick and pop guy. They also have their kids and Steph Castle, Dylan Harper, who I really think could be the next Kate Cunningham, and Carter Bryant grow into these winning roles while still having a bunch of veterans that we'll discuss in further detail. But let's just list off this roster because I really think it's one of the best combination of veterans and young players on one team. I assume potentially the starting lineup to start the year: De'Aaron Fox, Steph Castle, maybe Dylan Harper instead of Castle, but I think Castle earned the right as the rookie of the year. Devin Vassell, Harrison Barnes, Victor Wembanyama, with Dylan Harper, Carter Bryant, Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sohan, Kelly Olynyk off the bench. I wonder if Jeremy Sohan and Keldon Johnson might be packaged to get somebody. I also love the center by committee approach behind with Kelly Olynyk being a pick and pop big who can pass a little bit. Luke Kornet being this drop coverage energy big, and then Bismack Biyombo being the reserve. They have Riley Minex, who could be one of the best white boy snipers in the league, following the same vein as Matt Ryan and Duncan Robinson, and Sam Merrill and AJ Green, Gary Bird, Harrison Ingram, and David Jones Garcia. Their other two ways. It seems like Stanley Umide and Micah Potter, Adam Flagler, Lindy Watt, probably Stanley Umide and Micah Potter and Adam Flagler look like they're going to be guys who are going to be on the G League team. They're on Exhibit 10 contracts, which if they spend 60 days on the Austin Spurs, they get $85,300 bonus, which is on top of like the $47,000 they get from the G League. So they're making six figures. Julian Champagny, Lindy Waters, Luke Kornet, Bismack Biyombo, Jordan McLaughlin probably make up their reserves with the second unit, as I mentioned earlier. Dylan Harper, Carter Bryant, Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sohan, and Kelly Olynyk to start the year. And I just look at this team and I think with Wemby reportedly training with Monks this offseason, I think the focus, the defense, and everything's just going to come together. Everything's going to come to fruition, hopefully. And they've got a lot of tough cookies. As we mentioned, they had a bunch of people they brought in, and that being from Lindy Waters on that 1-year deal to Luke Kornet on a 4-year, $40 million deal. They drafted Dylan Harper, the second overall pick, who I think could be just as good, if not maybe better than Cooper Flagg. I'm just saying. Now, Mamu went to the Raptors. Blake Wesley went to the Wizards, and then he got waived, and he's on the Blazers. Malachi Branham is on the Wizards. Greg Popovich retired to a front office role, and Chris Paul went to the Clippers. Now, Jordan McLaughlin, Riley Minix, and Harrison Ingram were guys who retained. They also extended De'Aaron Fox, so that was another move that we were hoping that would happen, and it did happen, so that's key. That's what they wanted. Now, Wembanyama's coming back from the deep vein thrombosis. De'Aaron Fox had this weird pinky injury that he needed surgery, and he's coming back from that. This team went 34 and 48. They missed the playoffs, but they weren't far from the play-in. And having Wemby on the floor and be competent with the Vassell and whoever their point guard is huge. Because last year, I believe it was with Chris Paul, they were plus 2.9 per 100, and that's with Vassell, Wemby, and Chris Paul. But now you replace Chris Paul with Steph Castle, De'Aaron Fox, and Dylan Harper. I believe, yes, there's going to be a little bit of growing pains, but as long as they're healthy and they allow this season in the beginning part of it to learn and grow from mistakes they'll make in the late game executions that have held them back last year and that they need to grow out of this year. And obviously the trade for Fox and bringing in Dylan Harper and having basically like two timelines obviously signals that this team is ready to go to the next phase, that they have role players, they have the ability to pivot and make a move if it's necessary. While the biggest thing is that I think they brought in a bunch of spacing, they've layered their shooting, and they've structured it all around Victor Wembanyama. Wemby now has Olynyk as a spacing insurance big, Kornet is the energy depth big, and the two lottery talents in Harper and Bryant. They've raised their floor, and I think their ceiling. And I think they did the right thing. If you have a draft pick and you don't have, obviously, a trade that's going to land you an all-star, all-NBA player, you choose talent over fit, and that was what they did with Dylan Harper, who I think talent will figure it out. And with Wemby being back, that's huge. And I think we just talked about the rotation, De'Aaron Fox, Castle, Vassell, Harrison Barnes, Wembanyama, and then you have obviously Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sohan, Lindy Waters, Julian Champagnie, Dylan Harper, Carter Bryant, and Luke Kornet, Kelly Olynyk as guys who are all going to probably be competing for minutes. And what's interesting, we're going to see second-year guy, Rookie of the Year, Steph Castle, who is probably more of a combo guard with point guard-like skills. He's not a natural point guard. Same thing with Dylan Harper, but Harper plays slow, fast, kind of like Cade Cunningham and Luka Doncic. And Castle, Harper's not a bad defender, but Castle's defense and size versus Harper's IQ and on-ball shot creation, I think Castle's going to start early, but if Harper's ready as a rookie by the end of the year, he's going to be starting. Now, Jeremy Sohan, I don't think he's going to get extended. Maybe he does. Maybe he does go and get extended, but Jeremy Sohan is going to probably compete with Olynyk and Kornet for minutes to be the backup 4 and 5 in certain scenarios because, yeah, Jeremy Sohan gives you switchability, but he's undersized and doesn't really give you the spacing that Olynyk or Kornet gives you, and they're both more of rim deterrents than Sohan is, and he might be someone that is out of town sooner rather than later due to the fact that he doesn't really fit what they're clearly not extending him. He doesn't fit the team's timeline. Now, Keldon Johnson, someone who's been with this team for forever. He was a guy who was with the previous iteration with LaMarcus Aldridge and is a holdover that I wonder if they're going to keep or eventually move. But he's someone that used to be a starter and could start on other teams, but having him be one of your main players in the second unit is huge. But if they felt like they wanted to move him, I think Lindy Waters and Champagnie are both guys who can fill that spacer role. And their offensive players, I think their best offensive lineup could be a De'Aaron Fox, Devin Vassell, Dylan Harper, Kelly Olynyk, Victor Wembanyama lineup, while their best defensive switch lineup is probably a De'Aaron Fox or Dylan Harper at the point guard, Steph Castle, Vassell, Jeremy Sohan, Wemby, or Wemby and Luke Kornet. Now, I think the best all-around lineup is probably a De'Aaron Fox, maybe by the end of the year, a Dylan Harper down the road, a Devin Vassell, Harrison Barnes, Wemby. Well, that's where actually I'd go. Yeah, Fox, Fox at the 1. At the 2, you either have Harper or Castle. At the 3, you would have Devin Vassell. At the 4, Harrison Barnes, and then Wemby. Or you could even run a Fox, Keldon Johnson, Vassell, Barnes, Wemby lineup. Now, to me, I think they have top 10 two-man action with the De'Aaron Fox, Victor Wembanyama pick and roll. And then obviously they have 2 potential All-NBA players in Dylan Harper and Victor Wembanyama. And the defense with Wemby, Sohan, if they keep him, Kornet, Mr. Vassell, Castle, even De'Aaron Fox, Barnes. There's so much point of attack defense, and just all around every layer, it feels like all 3 levels is defended at the perimeter, at the point of attack, in the mid range, and even just at the rim with all the length that they have. And they just have a lot of shooting and a lot of high IQ guys, multiple young guys, as we mentioned earlier, Castle, Harper, Bryant. And I know people are going to say, well, this is also a weakness of theirs, as there's going to be some mistakes, growing pains. There's going to be turnover risks. And is this team going to be able to, when Olynyk or Biyombo or Kornet plays, will the rebounding and the rim protection remain the same? I think so. And I know some people are going to be like, there's health flags with Wemby and Fox. And is Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, and Harrison Barnes, all those guys, good enough to be able to assist and be complementary scorers to a De'Aaron Fox and Wemby core? And Mitch Johnson's going into his first year as a head coach. He was the interim last year, but he's going into prepared. And I think this year he showed a lot of motion, handoff, DNA style offense. Like, that's the DNA of their offense. A lot of motion, a lot of off-ball movement shooters, and a lot of handoffs, and basically playing 5 out. And that's going to be something that they're going to continue to play, but have more of this De'Aaron Fox, Wemby, high pick and roll, Spanish pick and rolls, double drags, maybe a little bit of some pistol actions, and have an early offense. And I think they'll also simplify some of their coverages on defense that'll funnel guys to Wemby. And what that will do is it will create open shots for guys like Devin Vassell, Steph Castle, De'Aaron Fox, and that will also help young guys like Castle and Harper to be able to be competitive without having to worry about creating for themselves or being a nuisance. So that's like one thing I think is like huge. And they're a team that is over the tax but below the first apron. If they were to do anything right now, they would get hard capped at the first apron. So if they did do a move, they would probably want to send money out, but the Spurs can practically use their mid-level exception or biannual in a trade if they wanted to. And the big contracts they have with Fox, Vassell, Barnes are what they're looking at currently. Even Keldon Johnson, I guess, technically, and Olynyk, but they're tradable mid-tier deals. Wemby is going to be someone that they're going to figure out that extension, and it's going to be one of the bigger ones in the league. Now, their 2026 first own or swap with Atlanta. Atlanta's obligations to Cleveland may impact that. And then they own first conveys in 2027, protected 16 to Sacramento, 17 to 30 to OKC, and then 2028 they own or swap for Boston's, and then 2029 they own their first, and 2030 they have the most favorable between Dallas, Minnesota, and Sacramento, I think. And then they also have Sacramento's pick or swap in 2031, and then they have their own in 32 of their first. So Dylan Harper, as I said, he's a slow, fast guy. He's the closest thing to Cade Cunningham, a big guard with live dribble creation. He can score at all 3 levels. He's a thick 6'6", like 200-plus pound guard who can play the 1-2, even 3 if needs to. He's going to be someone who's going to thrive attacking second units and being kind of the sixth man for this team and being a secondary handler with Fox. Carter Bryant's your typical combo forward who's got the skills to be a 3-and-D guy And his pathway to minutes and to having a long career is just being able to hit corner and above break threes, be a timely cutter, and compete on D guarding 1 through 4. Now, to me, Castle, if the jumper settles, he's going to be a guy who's going to be hard to take out the starting lineup. Jeremy Sohan, if he really wants to stay with his team and get extended or get traded to a team that wants to extend him, he's shown that he's a utility defender who unlocks switch groups, like switching defense. But his decision making and shot selection, especially in the fourth quarter, is going to have to improve, especially if he's going to be an asset. And then Devin Vassell needs to be a more efficient scorer, especially as a movement shooter, with Fox and Wemby going to be creating so much gravity that he's going to have a lot of opportunities to score. And last year, in 2023, he was a guy who averaged 19.5 points. Year before that, 18.5. And this past year, he was a guy that I thought, you were really going to see take the strides, and then he dropped down to 16 points a game, which really caught you off guard. And he's someone that at this point's been in the league for 5 seasons, has never played more than 70 games except once. So that's something to look at. But De'Aaron Fox is, I think, one of the biggest hot seats secretly. Like, if he doesn't work out they're going to have to pivot quick. One of the fastest, if not the fastest player in the league. I don't know if he still holds that title, but that was always De'Aaron Fox's thing. Also love his shoes. He's perfect for Wemby, especially pick and pops, pick and rolls, lobs, and he's going to be someone who will be able to create rim pressures, kick out to Vassell, Wemby, and he's a clutch player. And Fox also a great point of attack on-ball defender. And he's someone who can help set the tone and unlock transition offense and even be a catalyst in the transition defense. So how far will San Antonio go? If Wemby's healthy and Fox is able to acclimate together and this whole team goes, I think they're a top 10 defense with at least a league average offense to start, and by spring could be a top 15. I think the youth is obviously going to make it a little wobbly at first, but I think their floor is a round 1 exit and a potential nightmare matchup in the playoffs that could be a dark horse to make a run, like the Pacers did a year ago before the finals won, and then they went to the finals. So we're going to watch how they load manage Wemby. De'Aaron Fox, will that finger mess him up? Will the young guys be able to take the ramp up? I think all year we're going to see Devin Vassell, Steph Castle versus Dylan Harper. And by the end of the year, who's going to be closing out games next to Fox? And who's going to get more minutes? Luke Kornet, Kelly Olynyk, or Jeremy Sohan? I think if Sohan's in third by December, out of those 3 dudes, he's probably getting traded by the deadline. Will Keldon Johnson, Harrison Barnes, Waters, Champagnie, Vassell be enough shooting to keep the defenses honest? I think this team is going to push past 500, try to make it to 50 games. I think that's best case scenario if they're all healthy. Fox and Wemby and Castle and all their guys have really good chemistry and camaraderie, and they are just a two-way team. Worst comes to worst is if their health is just inconsistent and it just makes the season somewhat volatile because of the rotations. I think most likely they're going to be, best case scenario, the 5th or 6th seed. Worst case scenario, a play-in team and a team that maybe makes it to the first round and is just dangerous in whatever series they face the team. Yeah, that's my thoughts. Thanks for watching. Comment, like, subscribe. What are your predictions for the San Antonio Spurs this upcoming season? Do you guys expect them to be good, and why? Like, comment, and subscribe.